Call to order the meeting, the regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, February 9th, 2026. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Paula, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Sevum. Here. Commissioner Schlossberg.
Here.
Commissioner Proctor.
Here.
Vice Chair Gray.
Here.
Commissioner Corrigan.
Here.
Chair Kovacevic.
Here. A statement of participation is listed up on the board. Everybody can read that. Let's go to the consent agenda. Consideration of possible action approving the regular meeting minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission, January 12th, 2026. Looking for a motion, but like I said, I think there were, I couldn't tell you who said what, but I think there were a number of things in the transcript that were attributed to the wrong person. So I'd like to suggest that we do get that a little cleaned up, if we could.
Absolutely, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
So are you asking for continuance then?
You can do an approval with the stipulation, I guess, of having,
Yeah, I was looking for a motion to approve the minutes with the stipulation that Paul is going to clean up the who was attributed to the comments.
So moved. Second.
Okay. We get a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Sevum.
Aye.
Commissioner Schlossberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor.
Aye.
Commissioner Corrigan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gray.
Nay.
Aye.
Okay, 5-6-0.
Yeah.
6-1,
6-1.
sorry.
5-1.
5-1.
Okay, moving on to the regular agenda, public hearing with consideration and possible action relating to approval of special use permit to allow light assembly and storage in the C3 zoning district for property located at 16939 East Colony Drive, Suite 4.
Chair, Commissioners, good evening. Go through this fairly quickly. So this request is over on Colony Drive, which is located south of the Fountain Park area in that commercial, almost light industrial area. The zoning ordinance sets forth uses for different zoning districts. This property is zoned C3, and in section 1206, this permitted uses permitted by a special use permit in the C3 district. One of those is light assembly uses as an accessory use if it meets the criteria as stated in the code. So in this case, again with this suite within this address, a light assembly windows business got started back last fall in that building when they applied for their business license. We identified it as a use that requires a special use permit, and so they have filed that special use permit before you this evening. So the site plan that they have provided that shows how they divide up their business shows that it does comply with less than 50% of the business area being used for the assembly process, and they have no hazardous materials. They simply get in the frames, they get in the glass, and they assemble the windows per the customer's order. I did provide some pictures of what their assembly area looks like inside, so it looks like a fairly clean operation. They contacted the various businesses around them as required for the citizen participation and received no issues or concerns from any of the surrounding businesses. Again, they've been operating there since sometime last fall, and so there's certainly been time if there are going to be any negative impacts for us to have heard about it, and we have not heard anything. Section 2.02 F1D sets forth the review criteria. I didn't list them all here as we have previously, but it's basically, are there any detrimental impacts on the neighborhood or on the community from the operation? Staff has not identified any detrimental impacts. Therefore, staff supports a recommendation for approval of this SUP. The applicant is here if you should have any questions about this business.
Commissioners? Commissioner Corrigan?
John, do they have normal operating hours? Is it 8 to 5 or?
I'll let the applicant respond to that.
Yeah, question was for the applicant, are these normal operating hours? Normal, by that I mean, let's say 8 to 5?
Hello, my name is Adrian Siobanita. I am one of the owners of the assembly of wind. I'm sorry, I'm not used to it. So the operating hours are basically we get there around 9, 10 o'clock, and we leave about 4 or 5. We don't have like posted hours, but that we make our own schedule. So that's usually we get there around 9 or 10. And depending, there are days when we're not even there because we're busy installing windows. So I would say per week, maybe 3 or 4 days we're there around that time frame. And some of the stuff install when we're really busy, when we have like a large project, we're all hands-on on that project and we're all installing. And some days we're not even there per se.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Sveo?
I'm going to move approval.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public speaker cards?
No, Chair.
Okay. I just want to remind the commissioners, this is a C3 zoning area. There are like plumbing and sewer companies in here that are banging around their pipes at 2 and 3 in the morning. And that's permitted in this. It's the most intense zoning use that we have. So I just want to make sure that I made that point before we cast the votes. We had a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Seaven,
Aye.
Commissioner Schlossberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor,
Aye.
Commissioner Corrigan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gray,
Aye.
Chair Kovacevic.
Aye.
6-0.
Okay, moving on to item B, discussion and possible direction regarding the draft revisions to section 1.13 and chapters 5, open space, and 6, single residence zoning districts of the zoning ordinance.
Okay, commissioners, I know you've been excited, looking forward to this discussion this evening. I began introducing it last month that I've been working on an update of the zoning ordinance to do a few things, reorganize the chapters, create the use categories and use tables, and to provide some better organization for some of the development standards and requirements. The format that's in the code today is a little bit challenging to use. It's not really up to date with some of the standards in the industry. So trying to get that organization more up to date. Not really proposing significant changes to the content or substance of the ordinance, although there will be a few things that we'll point out as we go along the way that we will want to change just to correct some things. But don't want to, I'm afraid if we really got into all the substantive issues, we wouldn't get the organization done. It would be too much to handle at once. So my plan is to, as we have lighter agendas like this, to bring forth a few chapters to help you become familiar with what those changes are. And then over the course of a few months, the year, whatever, hopefully we can get through all the chapters in kind of this little bit more informal way, so that when I bring back the full document, you'll be familiar with it, and we won't have to hopefully spend a whole lot of time on it then. So this evening, do want to talk just briefly about section 1.13, and chapter 5 and chapter 6 as they will be organized. I had this last time, and again, just to keep you oriented, on the left are the chapters of the zoning ordinance as they exist today. On the right is the proposed new structure. So in particular, it's taking those ones in blue that are the different zoning districts that have kind of gotten scattered in the code and grouped them together. And then the ones in green that are the different development standards and requirements, get them grouped together. It'll just help the whole code function a little bit better as people try to use it. So one of the changes is in chapter 1 of the zoning ordinance, which is the introductory chapter, provides some of the very basics things about the zoning ordinance and how it works and functions. Section 1.12 are the definitions that we use, and so adding to the end a new section of the use categories. The use categories are divided into these different categories as listed here, from the open space to the accessory, and within each one there are a variety of different use definitions with types of uses that fit with those. And just as an example of this time of a couple of those, so within the quasi-public area, you see the community cultural activities. That's a broad category that includes a variety of things such as community centers, libraries, and museums all fit within that. Or clubs and lodges is another one that covers a number of things that are similar in nature. Or under the office category, you can see the business and professional and the types of things that fit there versus the detox center outpatient or the medical type uses that are then grouped together. So I don't really, we could bring this whole chapter in front of you and go through each one of these one by one. I don't think we need to do that at this point. That I think take too much time, and so my plan is that some of these will just be brought up as we need to bring them up. And otherwise, you have them. You have the full list of these. You can be reading through them. If you have any questions about any of them, you can let me know. But that's what it does, is instead of, as we showed last time, the list of individual uses in a zoning district, you know, single family, duplex, you know, this, that, or the other, group them into these categories. Within the use tables themselves, you'll see some different designations. P means that the use is permitted. SUP, it requires a special use permit. If it's got the dashes, it means that use is not allowed in that zoning district. A TUP requires a temporary use permit, and an X by something refers to a footnote in the table. So kind of that background of use categories. Any thoughts, questions, comments you have about that piece before we move into the other chapters?
Commissioner Spiel.
John, in looking at some of these community-type residences, inpatient, substance abuse, et cetera, how do you classify them when it's overnight stay or for a week? Or are these kind of like short-term rentals that can be under that kind of category?
Chair, Commissioner, it's probably a little bit much to go into in detail right now since I don't have the things to pull up here. But as far as the community residences themselves go, that was a topic that was worked on by the commission and the council a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And those are residential facilities that mostly fall into two categories. One are family residents, and those are typically going to be for seniors or other people with disabilities that come together in basically a group home situation. And the other, the short-term and transitory ones, and the most often example of that is a sober living home, mm-hmm. where people are coming through while they're going through treatment. They're there for a matter of a few months at the most, and then they're gone on their treatment program. And so those are different than a short-term rental, which is something that the state has allowed, basically a hotel room or a house serving pretty much as a hotel type setting. And then that's different from the different levels of detox type facilities and drug treatment facilities. And there are 4 or 5 categories of those in the zoning ordinance. I don't know now for sure. Sorry. And 1 or 2 of them have lodging. So if they have people really staying there for their treatment stay, which again is most likely going to be a matter of a few weeks to a couple of months, then they're in one category versus all the others that are more of an outpatient.
Assuming it's a nonprofit that is operating them, are they paying the town anything as like a short-term rental tax?
No, not like that.
Are they
no.
exempt from all of that?
So that's probably a question I couldn't really answer without some further research. They would certainly have their business license. Most of them are businesses operating in a commercial setting. The only one that's really not that is the transitory community residence. Okay. Anything else on the use categories as we get started? Okay. So what is Chapter 9 in the zoning ordinance, open space, be Chapter 5 in the new ordinance. And again, you can kind of see that example on the left is the partial list of the uses in the different districts as they exist today, and then the right is the full list for all the different districts in one simple table. And so if you read across there, you can see that the uses that are there today are covered in the new. But instead of, as you see, maybe on B1, golf course, but has some exceptions with a golf course, or down in B6, utility services, but has some exceptions, rather than breaking up the table itself with that information, it's either in a footnote or under the zoning requirements column, it gives you the reference to go find that same kind of information about how that use plays out in that zoning district. So you can see the ones that have the dashes aren't allowed, the SUPs or the Ps, or some things like the trailhead under the OSP. In some situations, you can do it by right. In some situations, it requires a special use permit, so you look in the 503A, and that describes those conditions about when you need it and when you don't. As far as the rest of the chapter goes, the things that were in the current ordinance with regard to trailhead, utility services, event reception centers, and master plan villages are located in section 503 of the new ordinance. Didn't change the wording in any of them, just at this point, just transfer the same requirements over. And if you look in the current code for the open space districts, you'll see there's not a use table there. They are just listed out in more of a paragraph form. Get a little bit harder to follow. All the other chapters use this table format. So for the new ordinance, have put them into the same type of table format that we see in the other districts. Questions? Commissioner Gray, you look like you're just wanting to ask one real bad.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around the open space district. So golf courses, at least in one instance in town, has underlying zoning, which is not an open space zoning. They have actual residential underlying. Does this get treated almost as could this get treated almost as an overlay to that underlying? Or would that be opening up a whole, to get to an open space zoning, would that require a rezone of those parcels?
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe we'll move on to the single-family zoning districts. We can always go back, but here we do see in the use table for those that golf course is a permitted use in all the single-family zoning districts. It has a one footnote that we'll get to, I believe, in a minute. I think I included them. But again, you'll see that you have the different use categories on the left and what's permitted down the middle, and the other zoning requirements down the right side. And these are all the same things that are permitted today in these districts, with one exception we'll talk about here at the end. Yes.
Commissioner Corrigan?
Question that was more current, and that's the Toll Brothers development, which is under discussion. And as I understand it, that's R1-35A. Could you kind of go into detail about the differentiation, which is not, I don't think is shown here?
Okay, sure. We can use that as an example as we get maybe to the
Great.
bottom. The real difference there is going to be down in the standards at the end, because you'll see here as you go down, if we just start here at the top, all the single-family zoning districts, as far as uses, are the same, with this one exception for corrals. Otherwise, they'll have the same uses allowed.
So what is unique about the A differentiation versus the R135?
We'll go back to those others here in just a minute.
Okay.
So here we have the area bulk standards. And so here we have the 10A versus the 10. And you'll see that everything's the same except for the rear setback and the percent lot coverage. And that particular property today is owned R135. And so you can see, again, there's fairly significant differences here in terms of lot width and some setbacks. But that's what the A does. There's also 8As and 6As. And each of those increase the amount of lot coverage and reduces the rear setbacks compared to the non-A.
Okay,
Otherwise the same.
great, thank you.
district.
Commissioner Svia?
John, are you familiar with smart code?
Yes?
Where the lots are certainly much narrower and alleyways and so on. Is there any, I assume that that would not fall under any of the current residential zoning classifications?
That's correct. We don't have that here. As we have particularly talked about, some of the changes to the town center. It's been in the back of my mind, and, some of the things that I've learned from that are sort of in the new overlay, trying to achieve some of those things. That's really where I think that code has its biggest use, is in creating or commercial areas.
Well, actually, my familiarity with it is mainly in residential. And but it does allow narrower lots, less expensive ways to build some more affordable housing, smaller homes, but not compromising architectural uses and so on. But I don't, especially if there's something else that comes along here into the town that might be of larger opportunity, it would be maybe something to consider, at least in a portion of it.
Sure. And that would, I would think if we did have that larger development, we would probably look at the opportunity for doing a PAD, a planned area development, and then we really can tailor those zoning standards to something
Basically
that we're trying to
Creating
accomplish
your
there.
own zoning type of
Correct.
thing.
That'd be a good place
Yeah.
to do that. Otherwise, throughout the town today, most of the town's developed,
Yeah,
and so there's really not an
I was
opportunity to make.
mainly thinking about what could
Right.
come along.
Sure. So back, that's other questions at the moment. Back to the use table within the residential districts. Of course, the main purpose of the residential districts is the single-family detached. These are other things that can happen and do happen occasionally within the residential districts, particularly having the churches, or called here places of worship. And so we do see the various footnotes at the end that cover all the things in the current ordinance. And to the side are the standards that go with them. The current code has a section 10.02C, which is prohibited uses. And so that's been copied now into 6.03. That was added a couple of years ago. You may recall, as we were dealing with some challenges of people making some creative uses of single-family homes that weren't exactly what we intended, and so this is there to help stop some of those things. So again, as we looked at in the last chapter, those different items, when you look through the current list of uses in Chapter 10 of the zoning ordinance, where are they in the new ordinance? Well, they're in 6.04 in various sections or forms, with just a few minor things. In the current ordinance, it just talks about daycare, and it's not maybe clear if it means child or adult. It could be either, although it's probably mostly done as child in the past, but in the new code and the use categories, we've labeled it as child or adult daycare type facilities. And then also one use that's currently listed in Chapter 1003B of the zoning ordinance is bed and breakfast. Given what's happened with the state and short-term rentals, that seems to really cover the same thing as a bed and breakfast. So I've omitted that from the code. I could be convinced to put it back in if we think there's a need, but at this point, it's not in there.
Commissioner Gray?
I just have two thoughts. One, on the bed and breakfast, I always thought that within the definition of bed and breakfast, there's a commercial cooking component that gets flagged. You know, if you're cooking for resale and it's part of the business model, I think that's why bed and breakfast has been called out in the past. So that's just one thought. The other is, if we're going to introduce adult daycare, just be really careful on the definition that corresponds to that, so that doesn't become a backdoor for other uses that we've previously managed.
So, understood. Let's see, so the bed and breakfast, I'm just gonna look at the bed and breakfast piece real quick. So the bed and breakfast allowed as a temporary use permit, as long as it no more than 2 bedrooms per residence, no more than 2 persons per room, and off-street parking is provided. Those are only standards associated with that in the current code. And yeah, I'll look back at how I classified, and but you can look at it too, and what we've given you on section 1.13 and that use category and what it is. I think it's pretty clear and pretty limited that it is what you'd most typically think of that is, again, probably primarily seniors or other disabled adults who just need to get out of the house for care during the day. So, and then we've hit this a minute ago, but again, this is just the same table of standards for setbacks and lot coverages with the footnotes from the current code. So again, not proposing any significant changes, just reorganization of the items, the biggest change being creating the use categories to simplify the table. Any questions, comments on any of this at this point?
Just, I want to second Peter's comments on the adult daycare. I think
Okay.
we've got to take a good look at that and make sure that we get that right.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to commission discussion request for research to staff. Anybody? No? Summary of commission requests from Development Services
I
Director.
Didn't hear any other than the comments with regard to what we're looking at with the zoning code, and be sure and look at those as we go forward. And then moving on then to 8, give you a heads up for the March meeting. I think it'll be a little bit more intense than this one's been. You may recall that at your last meeting in January, we were considering revisions to the downtown overlay, and that was continued to your March meeting. So we'll be back to further discuss that text amendment. At this point, we're also expecting to be on that agenda the request for the rezoning by Toll Brothers for the property up off of Aspen, the school property that they're looking at purchasing. And then there's a good chance we will also have at least 1, maybe 2 other zoning ordinance text amendments, one having to do with murals and one having to do with community residences. So, again, be ready. That'll be a little bit more lengthy meeting. We won't talk about the zoning ordinance. I'm sure you're disappointed at that meeting. Questions for me?
Commissioner Schlossberg.
On Aspen, how soon in advance are we going to have that info, even if it's like very preliminary? I mean, is it just going to come with a regular packet like it normally does?
As far as I know right now, that's when it would be, but I can understand your concern that maybe it would be good if we can get that to you any sooner, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a report?
That's it.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Looking for a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned.